BayRadio International, and it's Tuesday, which means our correspondent from the US of A has joined us in the studio. Afternoon, Rich. How's it going?
Yabba dabba doo. Here we go. Action-packed today.
It is indeed, and we'll have a couple of guests on after the break to talk about the latest situation with Joe Biden and the Democrats. Before that, a couple of other stories to look at, and making all of the headlines outside of the Biden situation is the heat wave and the subsequent storms and the fallout from the weather in the United States at the moment.
Yeah, things are really bad back there. It's either heat or too much rain, depending on where you are, and that the heat is sort of rimming the whole country, starting from Seattle all the way down to the bottom, all the way back up the East Coast. And there are, when you talk about heat, it's almost like Sahara heat. It's crazy. Northern California, 43 degrees centigrade. The city of Redding topped out at 48 degrees centigrade, which is 119. And, of course, our friends in Death Valley, that's always the hottest spot in the country. 53 degrees centigrade, 128 degrees.
That's hot.
That's hot.
I've been in that.
That's insane hot.
With body armor as well, it's terrible.
Oh, my God. So it is
36 million people, around 10% of the population are under that excessive heat warning. The last time, and it's not that long ago that we were talking about heat issues in the United States, we were hearing that basically air conditioning just breaks down and people are left to...
especially in a place like Texas. Texas has their own power grid as opposed to other countries, and where everybody deals with an American grid. Texas has their own, so they frequently have problems, and hopefully they've got that sorted out. But right now, we're in hurricane season as well, or they're in hurricane season. And
Storm Beryl hit Texas.
It just knocked things out. But only 3 people died. Now, that sounds terrible, and I feel badly, of course, for those 3 families of those 3 people. But the fact of the matter is that, people act crazy when streets flood and that sort of thing. They go driving in the streets, and they go surfing, and they go swimming in the Gulf of Mexico, and and that's how people die. But this time, only 3 people. So that is a little bit of good news.
Yeah, from one extreme to another, really. The big business story this week seems to be Boeing agreeing to plead guilty and pay nearly $250 million fine. Are the families, though, of people who have died in those 2 737 MAX jet crashes are not happy about the situation?
No, but they did. They are getting their pound of flesh, so to speak. This whole swing is going to cost Boeing almost $1 billion between what they're paying the families, and everybody remembers that this event was 2 consecutive years where a plane went down in Asia, and approximately 600 or 700 people were killed. And this is compensation for those deaths. And then that was $243 million. And this new amount is $243.6 million, is because Boeing lied.
Well, it didn't make the safety changes it said it was going to do.
They didn't make any changes at all. They said, yeah, we'll take care of it, and they didn't. And right now, Boeing it used to be a 5-star gold company, and now it's in trouble. And you can't do anything when you get to the airport. You're going to get on a Boeing plane, or you're not going to get on a Boeing plane, and you just it's terrible that we have to pray that we don't get a Boeing plane, and that we're crossing our fingers that we get to our destination safely. But there was they have to pay $455 million for a compliance program. So it's basically
something that they should have already had.
Correct. Absolutely correct. And so with the 243 times 2 and the 455, they're in the bucket for $1 billion. So that's real. That's more than a sandwich. That's real money.
Well, the other headlines I've seen, too big to fail, because that's brinking on basically putting the company out of business.
And why can't you get your act together? I mean, you're creating all these planes, and why isn't safety your number one priority? That's the big question. Everybody should answer. And I'm sure a lot of people saw that they had a wheel fall off one of their planes. in Los Angeles, and it didn't kill anybody, and thank God for that. I mean, L.A., as we know, is very, very congested city. But the problem is on that plane, the plane is 30 years old, and so at a certain point, you're beyond the responsibility of Boeing. I mean, United Airlines has got to maintain those planes, so you kind of wonder. What's going on?
I don't know. You have no idea.
That's rhetorical. I'm not unless you have an answer.
In this century, you would think we'd be on top of this stuff.
You would think.
I mean, the next thing we're going to see is people on Mars. you would think, but
not in a Boeing plane. We're not.
No, definitely not. Although they do have a space program.
They do.
Rich Reynolds, our U.S. correspondent, with us this afternoon, talking all things U.S. of A, and also joining us now, Andrew and Kathy from Democrats Abroad. To talk about what's been going on. Joe Biden, of course, on the agenda. The 81-year-old president told his party it's time to come together after that shaky debate performance against Donald Trump last month led to concerns about his capability to run.
Let's see if we can square this out. The Democratic Party of Spain and Democrats abroad in general support the Democratic National Committee. The Democratic National Committee is working with Joe Biden for the convention in Chicago, in which the presumptive nominee is Joe Biden, and his number 2 is going to be Kamala Harris. We're out to ensure that Democrats abroad are eligible to register to vote, make sure that their votes are counted in the states that they vote in, because as you know, we're 50 states. And what we want to do is ensure that people understand that the platform to which the Democratic Party has aligned itself to is a very democratic agenda vis-a-vis a convicted criminal that's going to be running for office at the other end, which is on the Republican side. So I think it's going to be a clear division between a convicted criminal running for office or a person who is a devout Catholic with a number 2 that has to be very articulate in relative terms to the women's issues and other democratic issues in order to win the election in 2024.
One of the big things that people are talking about, and one of the big things that's in the news, is Project 2025. And I was wondering if either of you have an opinion, or both of you, on Project 2025 and that radical proposal being put forth by the Republicans.
One of the things that Project 2025 is going to do is do the following. It's going to politicize further, deeper, and beyond 1865, 1870 years, the civil service. When you politicize a civil service, you have done away with the ability to fairly distribute programs and services across the United States. And if Project 2025 comes into play with a convicted criminal, there is no question that the United States government is going to turn it into nothing more than another business to which he's going to corrupt. And that simply is the statement that needs to be made about 2025.
Yes, but Donald Trump says he's never heard of Project 2025.
Yeah, I heard that yesterday too, and and that and a cup of coffee with the holes in it in the cup of coffee, I'll buy you.
You know, the big question is, how do you get people off of Trump? People who know he's a liar, they know he is prone to exaggerate, and yet they still like the guy. There's something intrinsically likable about them. To these people who follow him and who vote for him, there's an enthusiasm. And how do you get over that? How do you generate the same sort of enthusiasm for our current president that the Republicans have for their guy who, as you say, is a convicted felon? But people don't seem to care about that. People just say they see he's very charismatic and can't seem to get past that.
Richard, I know what you're saying, but remember that the Democratic Party is an aura of people that have different opinions and will come together when the time comes. The Republican Party, which is now the MAGA Party, has completely shifted from a party that actually worked towards common agenda items and competed with the Democratic Party in relative terms of what was right, what was left in reference to the country. We're now seeing, as Kathy said, a dictator pretty much being followed by a bunch of people because they want to see some significant change in their life. The reality is that change will never come for them. Their children are going to suffer. And if we don't stay in a democratic pattern, then we all lose. And we all lose. And we can't afford to do that.
Thank you very much indeed for your time today, Kathy Tullis and Andrew Anderson from Democrats Abroad. And in a week or so's time, we'll hear from the Republican side of the House. Why are some Republican-led states limiting who can vote in party primaries? Go on.
Well, what's happening is in the U.S., you got 50 states, and each one has a slightly different way that you can vote in a primary. Some have open primaries, meaning you can vote for anybody. There could be 20 candidates from Republican and Democrat, and you can vote for anybody you want. Some of them are closed primaries where if you're registered as a Republican, you can only vote for Republicans. And what the Republican Party is trying to do is close that up. So a lot of these governors have said, what we're going to do is if you're Republican, you can only vote for Republicans. They're trying to cull the herd a little bit, trying to get things down.
What are they worried about?
I think they're worried. Well, you know what's happened in the past is that Republicans have voted for Democrats just to get certain people off the ballot. So they voted for instance, if the Democratic Party has a weak person, maybe he's actually a car salesman and he has no right being on the ballot, what they'll do is they'll say, okay, everybody vote for the car salesman, and that way this guy's going to get all the votes and he's going to run against us and he doesn't stand a chance. So it's a little simplistic, but that's kind of the way things happen, and it's a strategic move, but a lot of times that it's a move that does not pay off. In this particular case, they're trying to keep their party pure, to use a term.
I've heard that somewhere
before.
before.
That's not a good term.
That's a bit concerning.
We don't like that term.
Right, I'm losing all my connections here for some reason, but not to worry. I've still got some of my notes.
Right.
What's been going on with Kristi Noem? Apparently, her social media is disappearing.
Kristi Noem is sort of disappearing, and
This is the lady that
shot
her dog, basically. Yes.
So things have not gone well for Kristi. You know, a lot of the good money said that she was going to be the vice presidential candidate, and then she stupidly published a book where she said, "I killed my dog, and then I killed a goat," and Joe Biden's dog should have been put down, and Commander is the name of his dog, should have been shot because he attacked a couple of Secret Service agents. Mm-hmm. And so that was pretty much the end of Kristi. And now all of her social media accounts have gone down.
So all that history.
So Cal, I know you like to contact Kristi whenever you can. Whenever you have,
she never replies.
Whenever you have nothing going on, he said, let's see what Kristi Noem is doing. And now you can't do it. Okay. She's not around.
So we're not sure if that's an ex Facebook and Instagram thing or whether it's her people just taking care of the situation. I guess it's more that, right?
That's right. I would guess that her people have taken it down because she's been complaining that she's been abused and people have not been very nice to her, and she's kind of brought it on herself. But we know people can be kind of cruel, and
absolutely,
and I've forgotten to send her a text today, but I'll do it when I get home.
I'm sure she's looking forward to hearing from you.
I'll send her something nice. Here's what we think of you over in Spain.
Okay, what about the Republican National Convention? I neglected to mention that. It's coming to Milwaukee. When, where, and will the big man be making an appearance?
Well, the big man is going to make an appearance because what they do is on the last day of the party, I call it a party, but on the last day of the convention is when they make the official nomination. He's already got it sewn up, so he will be appearing. The big question seems to be, will he announce his vice presidential candidate before the convention or during the convention, which is my guess is what is probably going to happen. It makes no sense to announce it ahead of time, but nobody really knows. Convention is about 4 days, and back in the day, I'm going back about 20 years, every minute of the convention used to be on American television, used to be on every network.
Really? The whole lot?
Every minute, from like 9 o'clock in the morning until 11 o'clock at night, it was convention. And then, times changed and cable became bigger and satellite TV and streaming and that sort of thing. And networks looked at it and said, I don't know if this is a good way of doing things. And so right now they do it very, very selectively, especially now since everybody knows who the nominee is going to be. There's not going to be any drama to speak of at that. And Milwaukee is in a swing state, and Trump being Trump couldn't help say that Milwaukee is not a very nice town. It's kind of a dump.
I noticed.
Who has their national convention in a city and your candidate says, "What a dump." What a guy!
I could say more, but
Oh my God.
I'm not going to go there right now. Just a few more stories for us to look at this afternoon, though. And I think I managed to get everything working again. Apologies for looking away there, but it was all a bit slow for a minute or two this afternoon. One thing we were going to talk about at the top that we didn't manage to get to yet, and that was the fact that Alec Baldwin goes on trial this week. That's 3 years after that fatal Rust shooting, and we're still hearing stories that we hadn't quite heard before.
Yeah, they put it off, and now they're finally having his trial. The woman who was called an armorer, someone who takes care of the guns and explosives on every movie set, every television show, and that sort of thing. Kind of a crucial person. She's already been sentenced. She's got 18 months in jail. And it's all very tragic, as we know the director of photography was killed, the assistant director was injured in this thing, and people wonder why this thing has been hung out for such a long time. I don't really have an answer for that. I do know, as someone who has been on numerous sets and worked in television his whole life, that it is the person who is putting the bullets in the gun. It's their job. Also, anybody. And I have never fired a pistol, but I can tell you, isn't it kind of the well known you don't point a gun at anybody?
Indeed.
And the fact that he took this gun, and it doesn't matter whether he was the director, the producer, it doesn't matter. You don't point a gun at somebody. You just don't. And I think he screwed up on that. So his problem is not as the director of the film. His problem is that he should never have done it in the first place. Now, whether or not he's going to get any time, I have no idea. He might get a little bit of time for doing this, but it's all very, very, very tragic. And there's going to be a lot of money exchanging hands, I think, before this is all over.
Oh, you reckon there's going to be a settlement?
Could be.
Watching this spot. Okay, indeed. Right. Thank you very much indeed for your time today. And Rich Reynolds, our US correspondent, back next week. And as I mentioned, we will have a representative from the Republicans, either Republicans abroad or maybe even a fully fledged US journalist straight from stateside.
Who knows?
From the Republican side of the House with us, either next week or the week after.